All right, we are now finished with our spot illustrations, and we are going to start assignment 8, which is to come up with a type solution. Some carefully designed and artistically created use of fonts and letter arrangements to go around our spot illustration and to really bring it out. Right? So here we have some examples of contemporary digital typography design, font design. And the way you'll see it work in practice is that it needs to support the illustration. So if this oversized first letter, which in the medieval art history is called the incipit, if this is the spot illustration that goes on the t-shirt, that is the sticker, this use of the other letters in the word for gone, the O, the N, and the E, that is the font treatment that we're working on for this assignment. And eventually we're going to put them all together. So your font treatment does not need to stand alone. Right? It needs to work with your illustration. And then ultimately we will put it together into a poster like this. So maybe that's my spot illustration, and then this is my font treatment, and then we'll find a background and a border, and we'll make a poster design out of it. Now letter forms, here's a nice example of Esquire magazine, all done with spot illustrations. So letter forms are a symbolic language, and you can really push those Latin symbols, pretty far in terms of how recognizable they become. But ideally, to keep them really, really clean, like these type posters here, you want to design just the type treatment in its simplest form in black and white as a vector file. So we're going to learn how to do that. And the easiest way to do that is to usually start from some existing letter form, from some existing font solution, and then modify it to your own purpose. All right, so kind of like this artist used different fonts to create mustaches with just their brackets. We are going to find a font that's kind of suggests what we want and then modify it from there. And then make it unique and make it our own. So how do we start? Well, first, instead of going right to Illustrator and right to font tools, we want to kind of sketch out our vision, what's called blocking out the text. So I'm going to go right to assignment 7 because this is the illustration that our text is supposed to work with. And if we're not finished with our spot illustration in assignment 7, we can always just go right to the sketch from assignment 7. But I'm going to go to the sticker I created through Redbubble. I will open it up in Photoshop, and I'm going to sketch and block out text around it. I already know what I want the text to say, but let me give some room for it. This is just a sketch. I can put white behind it. And I'll want you each to submit a sketch for your fonts, for your type solution, whether it's hand done or digitally done. And when I say blocking out the text, this is why. This is the text I know I want. Putin on the Ritz. But a solution needs to show where it goes, how it works with the image. So, I might decide I want it blocked out like this. And then maybe at an angle at the bottom like this. So maybe this is Putin. Big bold letters. Notice how I blocked it out first before I start cutting it up into letters. That's how I can control where it goes. And then maybe on the squished up here, and then Ritz nice and big to really get the pun out of the way. Now, why might this be a good solution? Well, instead of just having solid blocks of text that are horizontal and vertical like this, and very boring, this kind of engages the eye. Also, it puts his name close to his part of the illustration, so he's clearly on it. And it puts this, the Ritz especially, close to the Ritz crackers, so it helps you recognize the pun. And then the overall shape, yeah, it looks pretty good. It's maybe a little taller than I want it. So maybe what do? Well, I can move the Putin down a little bit. And I can play with a different placement. This is all just very rough. But what if I make Putin a little bit bigger? And have him overlap the text a little, because he's still very readable there. And I kind of like that solution quite a bit. Now you can do lots of different trials. Let me try another one with this type solution. I could even research different types of text. For instance, I'm thinking of, I wanted to make him look like He-Man. So I can look at the He-Man text from that old cartoon, which is very blocky and at this kind of angle. It has this very 80s airbrush look to it in the toy packaging. I could use that. That might inform a lot of my decisions. And look at this type design. So you could have Putin and then on the Ritz. You know, that could work. Now, how would I like how that looks here? Would I put it above or below? That's what I have to kind of sketch to figure out. So if I have Putin, it's a big block here. And then it angles in kind of in perspective like that. Putin, and then underneath on the Ritz, is that as satisfying an overall shape as this? No, not really. Not to me anyway. But I can learn from it. Maybe I can make this a little bit bigger, and when I color it, I have more fun with it. Make it really 80s airbrushy. So that's why sketching matters. And then maybe I want to simplify this a little bit so it is just straightforward. Have a little bit more fun with the type, but not let it distract so much, but still keeps the Ritz crackers next to the Ritz crackers. And use what we've learned in compositing, how to manipulate these layers, not to redraw everything, but simply to let it represent your ideas before you try to do them all by hand. So maybe something more like that. Yeah, I think that will work. So, what do I do now? I'm going to clean up my sketch. I'm going to save it as a JPEG, and that's what I'll refer to as I'm working on my type solutions. Sketch is just the start, but it makes you start, it introduces you to some of the issues you're going to have. And it should never be as easy as just copying something that already exists. Right? Each type solution is totally unique. So I'll save this as Carl Assignment 8 Sketch. And so I can flatten it, save it to the desktop as a JPEG. I don't need to make that save to my stickers. All right, now I want to have my inspiration. So my sketch will go in my Assignment 8 folder. And now I want to find some font inspiration. This will help me with colors, it will help me with strokes, it will help me with special effects. He-Man Masters of the Universe is definitely one of them. Here's one from the titles of the show. It's not quite so complicated. Here's another solution of that. Put all of those in there. Here's from a later version of it that I don't particularly like. And then there are some other fonts that are similar, like the Iron Man one, this He-Man. So whatever shows up, see if there's any inspirations. And then, of course, I'm interested in Ritz crackers. The logo, what's called a logo type, because it's a logo that's made with text. And how those letter forms look, especially on the packaging. Now, what's funny is a lot of these don't look that familiar to me. I think they've changed it recently. Or I just think of it differently than it really is. So I want to be aware of what's out there. Put that in my inspiration. So this one's a little bit more straightforward. I like that. And it gives me kind of a color sense. And then here's the older, kind of most traditional one. Nice blocky letters. That's kind of the core identity of that Ritz packaging. Now, I'm not looking for anything to use. I'm just looking for things to be inspired by. And then even just something simple like that, that's a certain font they use that I might be informed by. Okay. So now I've got some font inspirations. Put those all into this folder. Open that up. Now I want to find some fonts that might be useful to get started with, because the default fonts in Illustrator or on your computer are probably not going to be close enough. So we're going to go to a site. It's a great design resource. It's called dafont.com. It's mentioned in your assignment sheet, but it's just one place you can start. This is a free site. They only list fonts that designers put on that they're willing to let you use for free for your projects, especially because these are educational projects. But because they're on this site and I'm not stealing them from anybody, from any designer, I can also use it in projects that I put for sale. So let's just try it. Let's try He-Man and see if there's any fonts that come up with that tag. And no, surely not. Maybe 80s, blocky. No, how about just blocky? I could look up things like heavy metal. And search in a variety of ways. Usually the best way, because it's hard to guess what it might be, is looking at the themes. And what am I looking for? Maybe I'd be interested in some of the techno or sci-fi versions. Be interested in graffiti.